Thank you, Shivani and Dr. Jagannathan, for setting the scene and obviously talking us through a lot of detail about the guidelines and the methodologies that are being used at the moment. Yeah. My conversation here today is more generic in the sense it's related to sustainable marketing and long-term value creation. I'm talking about where we came around the whole concept of sustainable marketing in SaltyLama. And I think as the speakers before me have already mentioned, there was a shift in the conversation over the last decade about how the business leaders started talking about implementing practices in the business which had a more longer term view rather than a very short term profit-centered objective. There were conversations around compassionate capitalism. There were conversations around conscious capitalism. There were conversations around inclusive capitalism, meant that the companies needed to do something broader than trying to maximize their profits. And anybody who's been in a CEO's room or a C-suite knows that it's very easy to have a very short-term view and see what they can do about their products or releasing waste into the environment in a very responsible fashion. But it does come back to bite them. So there's obviously a need to look at long-term survival. And then came the view about sustainable marketing as a result of it. So I'm just talking about how till very recently, not all companies were thinking about sustainability and the transition to net zero with the same level of earnestness. Some businesses were looking to embed these practices at various levels in the organization, while others were only thinking about it superficially. But the context has certainly changed in the last 12 to 24 months, of course, with more and more awareness around climate action. In a post-pandemic world, the focus around health and well-being has increased to a very large extent, and companies who are not thinking about environment and socioeconomic issues are being deemed as laggards. Consumers that we are dealing with today are increasingly aware. Millennials, and I'm sure a lot of us here have kids, are very aware about the impact that the products that they're consuming are having on the environment and are questioning their parents and the adults increasingly about their choice of products. And consumers, even boomers, Generation X, are choosing their brands in a much more responsible manner than they have historically done. So the purpose of marketing is now changing from pure customer acquisition to informing the consumer about how the business is embedding sustainable practices. And it actually is also about educating the consumer over their entire product journey, from sourcing the product to the multiple uses that a product might have, and recycling and disposal. So this is obviously a focus towards longer term customer retention, value creation, and hand-holding rather than a pure customer acquisition play. So that's the shift in the nature of marketing from the more conventional way of marketing to a more sustainable way of marketing. And at SaltyLama as well, we're trying to embed some of these practices. I mean, we're at a very early stage in our growth, and educating the consumer and educating the consumer about our mission and the products that we will then be bringing into the market is going to be a key part of our sustainability strategy. So what does sustainable marketing look like? Sustainable marketing connects the audience beyond pushing the product or a service to promoting a mission, a purpose, and a value which is socially responsible in terms of impact on the environment and various socioeconomic issues. Every piece of marketing that the business then puts out is centered around its core mission, which we in SaltyLama call our North Star. So that's going to be the value that we're bringing to the table, and that's the mission that we're going to be relentlessly pursuing. The mission is then the focus and not the products. How does it need to be done? It's a very principled approach. Can you move to the next slide, please? Thank you. It's a principled approach. It needs to be holistic, and it needs to be reflected in every aspect of the activity. The questions that we are asking ourselves continuously: are we preaching sustainability? Are we practicing what we're preaching, or are we using our resources in a very unsustainable way? Are we collaborating with brands that are conflicting with our mission? Is the team representative of the future we want to promote? And wherever we feel the need to go back to the drawing board, we go back and figure out the strategies that need to be aligned with our mission. The consumer needs to be nurtured through their entire journey. And here I'm taking an example of a food brand, although we're not actually bringing a food brand to the market at the moment. But for example, a food brand could educate its audience on the importance of ethical farming on social media, then actually continue this process post-purchase with package recycling tips. There is a larger purpose that places the value embedded in your mission ahead of pure profit, as I mentioned earlier. And actually, you might find that consumers are willing to pay a premium for the products if the product is being developed and brought to market in a sustainable way. So unlike what might be a common view that sustainability is an additional cost on the business, we would like to differ there and say there is a cost, but actually over the longer term, there is a huge value to be realized from sustainability. So it would be a fallacy to just to brandish this as a cost center, but actually it's a longer term value creation if the company wants to be around in a decade or 2 decades or even 100 years. So we're talking about long-term survival rather than short-term profit maximization. Next slide. About SaltyLama. So as I said, we are an e-commerce marketplace. We're bringing products in a sustainable way to sustainably conscious consumers who are socially aware. We want to curate a list of products. The first one that we have in the market at the moment is an eco-friendly laundry detergent strip. Now this is supposed to be phosphate-free, paraben-free, and has been brought to the market giving the consumers disclosing what the carbon footprint of getting the product to the consumers is by disclosing the background of the supplier, the supply chain, and the journey that the product has been through to be made available on the portal. So this is just the first product, and obviously we're in the early stages of the development, and it is bound to change. But I think it's just to give a sense of how we're thinking about sustainability and the other metrics that we're using in terms of including even the profile of the employees, the diversity, the inclusivity, the carbon footprint of the products, and how they're being sourced or manufactured. And so that detail will be available for each and every product. But as I said, it is not the product that is driving the business, it is the mission that is driving the business. So there will be products that will be brought to the market who fit the key requirements of our own ESG criteria, which is currently being developed as a SaltyLama specific methodology. And that's just an example of how we're viewing ESG in our business, and will be entirely accountable by making it completely transparent to the user about how each and every product has come through the journey and to be made available to socially conscious and aware consumer base. Thank you.